This game's kinda old news at this point, but the physical copy just came out, so fuck it, it's relevant again. Before we get to the nitty-gritty, I have to say, it's a little weird pressing the B button to select things. I know I'm not the only one who's had to have noticed this, but nobody seems to say anything about it. Then again, it's easy to forget when there's nothing really bad about it and the rest of the game is amazing. The 8-bit graphical style and chiptune soundtrack were beautifully executed, but there's so much more to this game going on than just the graphics and music. That's really only there to draw you into the kind of game you're getting into, which combines elements from the best games of the NES era. The kind folks over at Yacht Club really perfected everything that their forefather developers pioneered, but I do wish they included some English to tickle our nostalgia holes a little more. But that has less to do with making reasonable demands of the developer and more to do with me just being an asshole. I also like that there aren't any obvious tutorials. The game teaches you how to play and what you can and can't do with the level design. Granted, it's harder to do that with modern games since there's so much more going on, but it's still worth noting and refreshing as hell. The controls are what I would consider perfect, and there's tons of challenge to be had without getting too overwhelming or frustratingly difficult like some of the games Shovel Knight got inspiration from. You won't find any cheap deaths in this game, and if you die, then it was probably your fault. Unless you were distracted by a microwaved hot dog that got misplaced in your butt for some reason. It's nice being able to play something that recreates the past while leaving the bullshit out that plagued so many older games. Things like making it to the end of the game and running out of continues and having to start the entire thing over again. In fact, this game doesn't even give you lives, but rather, if you die, you lose your treasure, and if you don't go back without dying, you lose that treasure. And you also have the option to destroy the checkpoints in the levels to earn more rewards for those who like to live dangerously. I think having this system's a good substitute for having a difficulty option, since you're essentially making the game as hard as you want it to be. Kinda like Yoshi's Island, but without the bullshit red coins and not being allowed to go back if you happen to miss one. Anyway, speaking of treasure, it's used as currency and can be used to buy upgrades like health, magic, or new suits that have unique abilities as well as unique flaws, which keeps the game interesting and prevents it from ever being too easy. Each stage has its own identity, and I love that the boss fights don't just repeat the same motions over and over again until you figure their patterns out, while at the same time all being possible to beat on your first try. They do have patterns, but they move in those patterns at random, always keeping you on your toes. As expected, there's not much to the story, but what story there is very charming and memorable. Basically, you're Shovel Knight. He's looking for his special someone, Shield Knight, and Martin Lawrence reprises his role as the Black Knight to try to stop you along the way. Again, there's nothing special about the story, but it's still fun with the way it was told, as well as the entertaining non-playable characters you'll meet in the various villages. Now, is it bullshit that they released this game as a digital download in the first place and then later on made physical copies? No. And if you think that, you're a dick. If you downloaded the original game, then be happy with that. The physical version comes with all the DLC that was previously released, as well as all the free future updates, a free digital download of the soundtrack, and most importantly, a useless instruction book that's kinda nice to look at. Fuck you. Besides, I don't think Yacht Club expected the game to be as successful as it was, and this game is way too good not to permanently exist on physical media. What else can we say about Shovel Knight? Everything about this game has already been said like 10 or 15 times. Shovel Knight for every system there is gets an 11 out of 11.